Welcome to the Take a Mulligan podcast with your hosts, Brian and Kenny Mulligan. We hope to encourage you not to quit and keep going. If you're at that place where you just want to stop and give up, don't. Second chances can happen. Try again and take a mulligan.
Well, welcome to our very first episode of Take a Mulligan, and we're going to talk about the origins of this whole term, Take a Mulligan. Now, if you're a golfer out there, you most likely know the term. If not, man, you're missing a lot of opportunities out there on the golf course. So I know that's where we tossed it around, right, Brian? We went, and this was like, I don't know how many years ago, we went out golfing.
Yeah, it was a while ago.
Yeah, we said, hey, let's you know what? I think it was your idea too. We said, why don't we just like the bunch of us go out golfing? Like, even if we did it once a month, we'd go out golfing 3 or 4 times in the summer, you know? And so we did. We'd go out after work. So it was like 5:30, 6 o'clock. Figured we got enough for pretty much 18 holes. Let's go.
Yeah, some we only got like 12 or 13. That was the most I've golfed ever, I think, in that summer. I think we got at least 5 or 6 times.
It was good. And so it was you, me, and then our brother Sean and our oldest brother Barry. He doesn't golf, so he didn't come, but our brother-in-law came with us, and even our dad came with us one time, remember?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that was one of the first times we were able to get Dad out on the course, I think, was that summer.
Yeah, that was a little challenging because he was starting with the Alzheimer's.
Yeah.
So it was a little challenging, but it was like, okay, we're not here for golf, we're here for Dad. But we took advantage of that because there wasn't a lot of people on the course. And so we literally would get up to a tee. And if I remember correctly, you took a lot of them, but you'd goof on the tee because we're not good golfers, No,
but I needed lots of mulligans on every shot I took. So
so it was like, oh man, take a mulligan, and you just took another shot, and you have like 3 balls in your pocket. So because a lot of times, like, there was no way you're going to find that one anyway on the course.
No, and I had only started playing, I think, a couple years before that, and that's why I got excited about like going out more often. And I remember when I started playing, I'm like, well, wait a minute, everybody told me about this mulligan thing. I guess I can actually use it now. It's my name. Why not use it on the course now? So,
absolutely. And I know people ask me today, like, if I'm not golfing, they're like, oh man, you're a mulligan. I'm like, yeah. So here's the rule: if you got a mulligan on your foursome, man, you get to take a mulligan on the front 9 and the back 9. So if I play with my brothers, we both get 4 mulligans on the front 9 and 4 mulligans on the back 9. It's great,
Well, even if I don't play with one of you guys, I still say, hey, I can take 4 each 9. So just a name thing.
4 each 9. Wow. So Tay, you're gonna give us a little background on this whole thing about mulligan. The history of the take a mulligan. So tell us a little bit more about where this whole thing came from.
All right. So what is a mulligan? Where did the phrase come from? So it was kind of interesting doing some research on this. So you golfers out there that may or may not be listening, you probably know a little bit more about this whole term and this phrase. Maybe you know some more of the history. So I did research a little bit. It's very interesting. So there's lots of different theories out there on how this term originated. So one was coming from a Canadian golfer named David Mulligan. I didn't know there was many Mulligan Canadians who played back in the 1920s and decided to take a correction shot after his first tee shot went wrong. So those playing with him thought it was, a nice idea to allow him to shoot it again, and then it became popularized in the U.S. to be named a mulligan. So another story says that the same guy had a rather hair-raising car journey to the golf course, a lot of drama in there, which made him on edge and shaky. So he was kindly given another shot at after disastrously missing his. So the last story involving David Mulligan states that he had overslept, was terribly late for the golf course, and his fellow players allowed Mulligan an extra shot to make up for his tee time. And other theories do state that David Mulligan has nothing to do with the invention of the mulligan, and it was actually John A. Mulligan, affectionately known as Buddy, and Buddy was a locker room attendant at a course called Essex Falls County Country Club in New Jersey during the 30s. So we're Jersey guys, so I kind of like that story the best. So when he wasn't working as a locker room attendant, he would be often found playing on the golf course with professional golfers. One day, Mulligan was said to have hit an awful shot and begged his playing partners for a second chance, given that he had been able to practice while Mulligan had been working. So he wasn't able to practice as much, so they were nice to let him take a second shot. So I do have to give props to GlenMuir.com news for all this info. So what exactly is the definition of a mulligan? A mulligan is a second chance to perform an action, usually after the first chance went wrong through bad luck or a blunder, or as most of us know, a mulligan is simply a do-over. So I think most of us can agree that we've all experienced a do-over at times, or wish we could have a do-over at times. So that's what we're going to be talking about when what it means for us, and how we can all use a second chance at life and times. And I'll just throw in this little extra tidbit here. Mulligan is a surname originating from Ireland, coming from the Irish O'Mallagin, literally meaning grandson of the bald man. So I don't think I ever knew that. Didn't think that was ever like a lineage thing we needed to worry about being the grandson of a bald man.
Yeah, maybe it's that Irish genetics or something. I don't know.
I guess so.
Yeah, so
So
we
as
went go ahead. Go
jumping in here, I was going to ask you, Ken. So, we're going to share with you guys, what our mulligan was, or one of them. We have plenty of them in our lives. We all do. So we'll kind of jump in this first episode and ask you, Ken, what do you think was one of the big mulligans that you can recognize in your lifetime, a big do-over you had?
I think I have a lot of them, but probably one of the biggest one is I remember, going to school. I was the B student, and so I wasn't the A student.
It's better than the D student.
That's true. I remember getting some D's though and being embarrassed coming home, right? Show mom that roof work. But so I was the B student, and I was a B student partly because I was the teacher's pet, and that somehow I just, I don't know, learn how, maybe it's the connection of personalities or something, learn what the teachers wanted. Like, and so you got connected with them. So that helped because they would, give that extra help and that kind of stuff. But I never saw myself as an A student. And so when it came to terms of going off to college and stuff like that, one was struggle, financially, because, our dad was an art teacher, and back then they made hardly any money. And so mom and dad weren't going to help us. So it was like, wow, how do you get to college? How do you do this stuff? And so I really didn't have strong ambitions to go to college. Mom and dad said, well, you should go to the community college and stuff like that. So I did, coming out of high school, went to community college for a little bit. And after a while, I just got into the whole printing industry and was running a printing press and stuff like that. So it's like, I don't know if I need it. And again, I never saw myself as someone in education. Like, I never saw myself as that smart. And so lo and behold, fast forward a few years and was married. We had our first kid, and that's when I came down with multiple sclerosis. And all of a sudden it was like, I got to change careers. I can't be on my feet all day running a printing press. And so that, and, sometime we'll talk about that whole story, but that was a catalyst to, oh my goodness, what am I going to do? And all of a sudden it's like, well, you should go back to school. You got to get an education. You got to figure out something. And so I literally applied to a grad school program, and I was like, whoa, and I got in. Okay. And they could only take so many students that didn't have an undergraduate. So that was a step in itself to go back to school and learn that. But I remember, going to my courses, and I was striving for A's. I literally was striving for A's, and it was hard work. But I remember my first semester, I pretty much got straight A's down the line. I was like, oh my goodness. And so for me, going back to school was a mulligan. It was, I didn't think I could do it. I didn't think I was that smart to go back to school and engage, and now engage at a graduate level, which was actually really exciting. Because I was 25, 26 years old, I guess, right? I don't know, somewhere around that when I went back. So that was cool. I just thought, wow, this is, you can do it, and obviously it changed careers and everything else for me. So yes, that was a big mulligan for me. So how are you? What's one of the ones you could share?
Well, I guess we're sticking on the school story here. And I thought you were more of like a B student. I didn't know you were a B student. That's not bad.
Yeah, a few C's, a few A's. That's why I said A student.
Yeah. So I guess I had that perfectionism in me from dad when it came to school, because I always was always striving for the A's, and I wasn't one that was one of those kids that like, oh, I barely studied and got an A. I was the one that had to work really, really, really hard to get those A's, and I guess that's where the persistence kicked in at that point. So for me, my mulligan was actually a whole bunch of series of mulligans or do-overs while I was going through college and trying to get to my career path. So when I was in high school, I guess probably 10th grade, I started to recognize like, okay, I guess I got to figure out some kind of career. I have no idea what I want to do. 11th grade. And I think it was a class in 10th grade that we had that was sports medicine was like an elective or something. Sports medicine at that time was like a big hot topic. It involved kind of, athletic training, physical therapy, orthopedic stuff, all related to sports. And, having played sports most of my life, that kind of generated a little bit of interest in me. So we just kind of learned a lot during that class. I think it was kind of a little bit more athletic training driven. And I remember thinking, what, maybe that's not a bad path. And I wasn't quite sure what I would take from that. So we learned a little bit about physical therapy. And then I think the next year I started thinking, I'm like, I think I want to try physical therapy. Maybe I'll do that. So I started pursuing like, okay, what does that look like when I get out of, high school, and what colleges do I need to apply for? So the long story was, I'll make it a little bit shorter, but decided to go to community college to get all my prerequisites, and then was planning to transfer into, PT program either within a year, maybe 2 years. I'd finish up, 2 years of community college. I wasn't sure, but I decided to start at community college. So I was a pretty hard worker in college. I started right away. Actually, we graduated in June. I started, I think, a summer class in July for biology or something like that to get a little ahead of the game. And then started taking classes with the intention of, what, I'm going to do my first year here, and then I'm just going to transfer. So I'll apply. So I started applying, worked really hard, and I started applying in that first year to try to get into some PT programs as just a transfer, and figured I'd go in as a sophomore, or whatever would happen, I'd just get in. So at the time, most of the programs were all bachelor's programs. Some of them were transitioning to master's programs, and that was kind of accelerating quickly over the next couple of years. So the next year, I did the same thing. I was finishing up my second year, planning to transfer, and now at this point already, a lot of the programs had switched to a master's program. So now I didn't get in the first time, so now it's my second try. So I'm thinking, okay, well, if there's a master's program, I have to go somewhere beyond here to get a bachelor's in something to work towards. So I'm going to go ahead and apply to, local, went to TCNJ, at the time it was Trenton State College. But I went there. So I plan to either go there or to hopefully get into PT school. So I got turned down to PT schools. So I couldn't transfer, but then I went on to Trenton State College, started working there on a degree in corporate fitness. And then my junior year, thought the same thing. You know what, let me just try to, whatever's left for bachelor's degrees, let me try again, and I'll, put my ring in the hat, or my hat in the ring, I guess, and and see what happens. So I did apply to a couple other local colleges at that time, got turned down again my junior year. So now I'm, starting to think, okay, I'm going to at least graduate next year with this bachelor's degree, but then what do I do from there if I can't get in? So now I'm in my senior year, so I'm trying to ponder that whole situation. So I was so desperate and determined to be in this profession that I wasn't going to let anything stop me. Now, just to throw this out there, I was a good student. I really worked very, very hard to be a good student and had very good work ethic at getting to there. There was a weird thing going on there. I was never very good at SATs and those standardized tests. I just never could do well in standardized tests, but I could do well in the classroom. So that's why I'm not a big fan of how they gauge that stuff, but that's another topic. But what was really interesting to me at that time I was trying to do that was I would take a lot of night classes just to keep up on making sure I got all the classes in, got work through my schedule while I was still working and everything. So I met a lot of people in night classes that were, second career potential people. And it was very interesting to me as I was going in the classes and, taking the sciences and stuff. And, a lot of people were saying, oh, they were going into physical therapy. They were trying to get their prerequisites. And I thought, well, that's what I'm doing. And I'm like, you guys, one was like an accountant, somebody else was something else. And all of a sudden they were just like, oh, I just want to switch careers and easily go into this. And I'm thinking, I've been trying so hard for years to get into this, and I knew what I wanted to do, and I couldn't get there. So I don't know if somehow at that time it was a very competitive field. I mean, some programs were, they had like 500, 600 applicants. They were only taking like 20. Some were taking 40. I think maybe the highest in the area was taking 50. So they were very, very hard to get into. It was very, very competitive. And I think for me, I kind of was looking at it thinking, well, I don't know if that's very fair. Like, you got an 18, 19-year-old kid who knows what he wants to do and is driven to get there, and they seem to keep picking, 30-year-olds because their second career. So I don't know really what to make of that, but it was very frustrating. And then when I would get turned down by these schools, I would contact them and say, what can I do differently? And all of them would just say, just keep applying, keep applying. So I was very persistent. I guess I have this spiritual gift of stubbornness, which, I guess I'd like to call, persistence maybe is a better term. So I became very persistent, very driven at that time. So here I am in senior year now trying to decide, okay, what do I do? So I can either, again, try to transfer in. Now I don't know what class or what level I'd be at that point. Now that I've done 4 years of college, I don't know if I'd go in as a freshman or a sophomore or whatever I do. But I was thinking, okay, let me apply to anything that's left as far as bachelor's programs. So I did that. There wasn't many, and then I also applied to a couple local master's programs. So I had bachelor's programs, master's programs I was applying to. And then my backup was actually, there's a profession, it's a physical therapy assistant, is a 2-year associate's degree. So I thought, I wanted to get into this profession so bad, I'm going to apply to that as well. So I applied to a couple of those programs. So I got turned down to any other bachelor's programs as a transfer, got turned down to the master's programs, and I got into 2 of the PT assistant programs. So here I am graduating with a bachelor's degree, now going to work on a 2-year associate's degree. So it's a very kind of twisted world to go in. So I started going to this program in Philly, and I was in there, and I thought, what, I'm going through this fall semester, and I just kept thinking, what, I this isn't what I want. I want to be a physical therapist. There's more supervisory, situations that you need as an assistant. I didn't want to have that. I wanted to have more autonomy and not have to be supervised by someone and have limitations there. So I wanted to do my own thing. So that's why I was so driven to say, what, I'm giving this one more shot. So that was my last mulligan of that whole series. I took plenty of them along the way. So this is my last mulligan. I said, I'm going to try one more time. I'm going to apply to one program that's a master's program, and that's it. And if not, I guess I'm sticking with this PTA thing. So I did end up getting in finally on the wait list, not even in officially, but that was close enough to me, and then ended up getting into the program. So I finished off that 5th year in associate program, and then about a month after started right into an intense master's program. So all along it was, I guess, let's see, 4, 5, 6, 7 years of college, and went through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different schools to get there. So, so it was a long journey, but it was a big lesson for me in persistence and work and hard work. And I think it really set me up to be, a lot of the person I am today for how hard I work, and just the fact of persistence and not giving up. So, I mean, it's kind of almost the epitome of a mulligan, it's like a huge do-over that I wasn't willing to just take only one.
No, you took almost as much as you take off on a golf course.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of mulligans. Yeah, it's wow. So, and I think, one of those things that you and I have in common, maybe that's why we connect, is that stubbornness or persistence, as you put it. Yeah, it is. You don't want to give up. It's like, what? And I think, and maybe talk about this a little bit before we, wrap up here, but I think a lot of people look at someone who's persistent. It's like, me, I can never do that. And I mean, from your perspective, that wasn't easy. It wasn't like, it's like, oh, I'm just so stubborn, I'm just going to do this. I mean, how many times during that whole time did you have doubts of like, no, I just can't do this. I can't do this. I can't do this.
It was all the time. And what's interesting with that whole story, the other side of that was, I had met my now wife. We were dating in my senior year of high school. So she knew the plan. I knew the plan. We were getting serious. So this whole journey of college, like, we ended up getting engaged. I got married the week after I graduated from undergrad. So 4 years of college, got married. And then the rest of this journey we were together for already. And they're just, so my whole take on it was like, we kind of had this whole plan, I'm going to graduate in 4 years, we'll get married and I'll start my career and we'll have our life together. And then all of a sudden I was like, oh no, wait, that's not happening. It was like, okay, now what's going to happen? And then it was like, now what's going to happen? So what's interesting is I have an amazing wife, and she was, very awesome to help provide for us in those 2 years of grad school, because we had gotten married.
Okay.
And now, I was in grad school full time, and she's, basically supporting us those 2 years. So, there's a lot of those pieces in it too. And there's a lot of, that doubt, a lot of self-doubt on my end, a lot of doubt of our future. Like, if this doesn't work, what's our future going to look like? If I can't get in here, So, it was definitely a big lesson in persistence.
It's amazing how much stuff gets wrapped up in all that too. And sometimes people don't realize that. It's like, you look at, you go into school struggles, but it's like, no, your whole life in some aspects was on hold, I
Yeah.
know for me, I got a great wife too, and she was amazing in that time because, we were married, what, 4 years already, had our first child already, who was a year old, right? And that's when I started pursuing the going back to school thing to another career, going into ministry. And it was like, she never signed up for that. She married a printer in a print job, and she didn't sign up for the next 7 years of education that I would go through
Mhm.
and the struggles that, we'll have to have our spouses on here one time, the struggles that they go through because they take that burden of, you're away studying because, like, it's not just
Mhm.
going to school, but it's like, I can't tell you how many parties and family events that you go to, you hang out for a little bit, and it's like, okay, well, I got to go up and study because you just got to do the work, right?
Yeah.
And you miss a lot of stuff. So it's tough, right?
It
I mean,
is,
it's
yeah.
tough
And
going
I
through those
I
things.
think too, it's a self-discipline, and I'm not sure if we're on this episode to give the moral story of stay in school. Um
I showed
I
people
think
up to
it's I
St.
think
Louis.
yeah, I think it's more about, just understanding that we're doing this podcast. We were excited to do this podcast mostly because we just wanted to share, in a lot of ways our lives with people, whether they want to hear from us or not. But the bigger picture is trying to explain and encourage people that, we all could do life over. We can all have a do-over. We all want to do over. We all, have opportunities where we should take that chance. And I think a lot of
Absolutely.
us miss that chance, and a lot of us are too scared to take that chance. So, we want to encourage people while we're on here and discussing different topics, whether it's our life experiences or other people we bring on here to talk about different topics. We want to encourage all of you out there, those of you that might be listening, that life is full of a lot of challenges,
Yeah.
and a lot of people have a much more difficult life than others do. Some people really seem to sail through life, and I think a lot of people get envious of those people, but maybe there's stuff going on behind the scenes that doesn't look so glamorous, and we
Yeah.
don't recognize that. And I think a lot of people have that, but um we can all use a do-over.
Yeah. And I think a lot of this ties into, we hit on it a little bit. School is taking those second chances, taking that do over is not just one aspect of your life. It encompasses so much, and I
Mhm.
think that's why we came up with the four topics, of fitness, faith, family, and friends. That all of those intersect in so many different ways
Yeah.
and in our lives, and so what you might think, I'm not into fitness or whatever. It's like, yeah, but fitness is so much broader than that, than just going to the gym, or faith. And maybe you're listening in and you're like, I'm not really into faith, and they're going to talk about faith. It's like, but faith is such a big topic too, because we have faith every time we start our car that this thing's going to start, and it's not going to blow up. I mean, there's a lot of parts going there, I mean, faith is a huge topic, and then family and friends, they intersect our lives at all the times, and they can encourage us or discourage us. And sometimes that persistence, you have to, it has to be in you, regardless of what's around you and the environments around you. You have to be willing to, not insensitive to it. I don't mean that at all, but there's that sense of, I got to do this. I got to accomplish this. Right. I
Yeah.
mean, did you feel that? Like,
Yeah.
no, this is bigger than just this and that. And yeah, you miss a few birthday parties because you're pursuing that, but there's a bigger, broader picture, and that's why you're doing it,
Yeah.
And sometimes they're small things, so for somebody listening. But and yeah, I don't know. School's not for everybody. I get that, but yeah, I hope it will encourage people to look at where they're going in life and say, you know what, I always wanted to do this, and I didn't do that.
Yeah.
And why don't I start my own business? Why don't I change careers? Why don't I go back to
Mm.
school? Why don't I, whatever it is, take that second chance. So
Yeah, and I think, I'm not on here, Kenny's not on here to brag about like, hey, we're so persistent, you need to be like us. It's none of that at all. I mean, because in my case, especially, even in yours too, Ken, people could look at it and say, wow, that's quite a failure to not have, gotten into school every time you've tried. And again, sure, I struggle with that, but I think the bigger thing I came away with was the fact of saying, like, you know what, that was a failure, but one, I have to learn from it, and two, I can either give into it or I can try again, which is what we're trying to do here. So we want to definitely encourage people that are listening that, life, like we said, is got a lot of issues with it that we can all use a do-over, but don't be afraid to take that chance. Whatever it is in life, it could be the fact that you just, want to wear this outfit because you don't think you can. It could be as simple as that. It could be as simple as, you know what, I can't cook, but I want to try this recipe. Everything. There's so many simple things in life that we can just take a chance on that we're so scared to do. So don't be afraid to take a chance. Let's take that mulligan. Let's swing through together.
Hey, we know everyone can use a second chance or a do-over, so take a mulligan. Try again. Thanks so much for joining with us today. Make sure you follow us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube. Like, click, and subscribe.